This week on The Inside Story, we're just a few weeks away from a course-setting U.S. presidential election. Join us as we travel to the swing states that will ultimately decide who becomes America's 47th president. Now, on The Inside Story, USA Votes 2024, the swing states.
Hello and welcome to The Inside Story. I'm VOA Midwest correspondent Kane Farabaugh, and we're here in Milwaukee in the U.S. Midwestern state of Wisconsin, a state that could determine the outcome of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. Every 4 years, the U.S. presidential race zeroes in on swing states. These so-called battlegrounds, unlike most states that consistently favor one party, can flip between elections and often determine who wins the White House. With just a few states typically in play, campaigns pour resources into these crucial arenas. Their electoral votes frequently decide the outcome, making them the focus of intense campaigning.
Swing states are crucial to winning the White House in 2024. These battleground states see the fiercest and most expensive political campaigning, and their voters have significant influence in the election. So how does this work? Most states are predictably red or blue, Republican or Democratic, so their elections aren't competitive. But in swing states, the outcome can go either way. A candidate needs 270 out of 538 electoral college votes to win the presidency, usually through winner-takes-all state elections. Swing states provide the deciding votes, allowing candidates to pass the threshold. This year, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin hold the keys to the White House. Among them, there are 93 electoral college votes that could go either red or blue. These states have thin electoral margins because of a near balance between Republican and Democratic voters. Shifting demographics and competing views between urban and rural areas make the outcomes unpredictable. Even small changes can tip the entire state, giving Kamala Harris or Donald Trump the electoral college edge. We've seen this happen before. In 2016, Trump won Pennsylvania by a 0.7% margin, securing 20 electoral college votes and the presidency. 4 years later, Joe Biden reclaimed the state by 1.2%, helping him win the White House. That same year, Biden won a thin majority of 12,000 votes in Georgia, tipping the state from red to blue for the first time in almost 3 decades. Swing states are unpredictable, but one thing is certain: they hold a massive influence in 2024. In these areas, every vote matters.
Wisconsin is one of 3 states in the Midwest both Republicans and Democrats view as critical to their presidential campaigns. And there is one issue above all others on the minds of most voters. When VOA met Wisconsin restaurant owner Gonzalo Perez in 2017, he expected a big boost in business.
It's my lottery ticket.
That's because Taiwanese company Foxconn planned to build a massive flat-screen manufacturing facility not far away. Employing as many as 13,000 workers, Perez thought might frequent his restaurant. But Perez's dreams and Foxconn's plans didn't meet reality. Today, Foxconn's scaled-back southern Wisconsin facility employs fewer than 1,000 people.
The promise never was done.
Instead of a busy restaurant filled with customers, Perez is dealing with empty tables, staff shortages, and rising costs due to inflation.
The economy is really bad for us.
I think that the real key when people go to vote in many cases is how do I deal with rising costs?
Bob Whitkey is a Republican representative in Wisconsin's State Assembly, whose current district is near both Perez's restaurant and the Foxconn facility. While the economy is a top issue for voters, he hears even more frustration with what they see as a lack of bipartisan cooperation among lawmakers.
That we don't work together. I hear it from both parties. You're not getting anything done.
Nick Ramos is the executive director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, which he says is a bipartisan organization dedicated to good government in Wisconsin. The organization recently participated in a successful effort to change state legislative district maps in Wisconsin. Voters he talks to express concern about the future of U.S. democracy.
My hope is that no matter who ends up taking the Oval Office, it will be somebody that actually engages the people and actually wants to try and do everything to not only safeguard democracy, but find ways to make it better.
Wisconsin is a state as divided as any in the country, but what both Democrats and Republicans here can agree on is that succeeding in the presidential election in this state in November depends on how well they can get their voters to turn out.
So, Wisconsin, today I ask you, are you ready to get to work?
Recent polling in Wisconsin indicates Democratic nominee Vice President Kamala Harris has a narrow lead over Republican nominee, former President Donald Trump.
A vote for Trump is a vote to save Wisconsin, and it's a vote to save your country.
Restaurant owner Gonzalo Perez hasn't attended political events and hasn't met either candidate.
Lifestyle never change. It don't matter who gets in. I got to keep working 7 days a week, same schedule. I pay taxes regular. I don't see no benefit.
Perez says one thing above all will determine how he'll make his decision.
Sometimes I vote for whoever I think is going to be a change.
Immigration is one of the top issues for U.S. voters in November as they decide who will occupy the White House. VOA senior Washington correspondent Carolyn Pursuti takes us to a dusty desert outpost in Arizona.
This was a gold mining town, the richest strike in the state of Arizona at the time.
Now a ghost town.
Yeah.
Patty Burris lives here with Beano, her 38-year-old donkey.
Come here, buddy. There you go.
Burris says she's tired of undocumented migrants sneaking across her land from the Mexican border. Former President Donald Trump gets her vote.
He's going to deport them. Yes, I am all for that. Absolutely, get them out of here, and he can do it. He knows how.
While President Donald Trump ordered a 740-kilometer wall be built at the U.S. southwestern border, this is the Arizona portion of it. On his first day in office, Joe Biden paused any new construction on the wall.
They could have had it completed in 3 weeks. But
Donald Trump returned to an Arizona border wall, although the Washington Post reports this section he visited was built before he became president.
because there's never been a border in the whole world that's leaked like this border, with all those millions and millions of criminals coming through.
Democratic voters at their convention say their party is more tolerant.
Immigrants, we belong, the neighbors, we take care of each other. That's really what it's all about.
If elected, Vice President Kamala Harris promises a path to citizenship and the return of a bipartisan immigration bill that died in Congress.
The Border Patrol endorsed it. But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign. So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal.
Back at the ghost town. So Harris would not control the border as much as
Don't believe a word she says. Where's she been in the last 4 years?
Nobody stops by the old deserted town much anymore. Burris says she'd like to go back to the time when she saw more tourists come through than migrants. Carolyn Pursuti, VOA News, Pierce, Arizona.
The voters of Northampton County in Pennsylvania have chosen the victor in all but 3 U.S. presidential elections since 1920. VOA's chief national correspondent Steve Herman looks at the landscape for Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump in this bellwether county.
Northampton County, Pennsylvania has often found itself at the core of the United States industrial revolutions and its political evolutions. Its city of Easton was one of the 3 places where the Declaration of Independence was first read to the public. Bethlehem, once synonymous with industrial might, is now a tourist destination with such events as Music Fest, which drew more than 1 million attendees this year. It's a much more uplifting tune for the city and its voters, following the blues of 2 decades ago, when former industrial titan Bethlehem Steel was dissolved and sold.
China's in the steel business now, and they want to know what are these candidates going to do to bring those jobs back or to rebuild America?
Northampton County has the uncanny ability to select the winners of presidential elections, having chosen all but 3 since 1920.
What really makes it, I think, magical in its ability to predict what happens in the state and nationally is its mix.
In that mix, farmers, suburbanites, new residents from New York and Philadelphia, and a growing Hispanic population.
The hardcore Republicans and the hardcore Democrats, they're so even in their numbers that the Democrats have a little bit of an edge there, that small percentage of people who are willing to swing are going to decide that election time and time and time again.
And that is why this is known as Swing County, USA, where there's still a significant percentage of voters who split their ballots between parties and prioritize issues over personalities.
Being the president is a job, and so we care more about, is the job going to get done?
That's Rachel Lowe, a new mother concerned about women's rights and environmental policies. Mick O'Hearn sees the majority of the county supporting the Democrats for a second consecutive presidential election.
From talking to people who I know voted for Trump in the last election, they're not going to vote for him this time around because they're saying that they're kind of tired of it.
Democratic Party nominee Kamala Harris is not going to get Wayne Jones's vote because he says former President Donald Trump is tougher on stopping illegal migration.
If I had to choose right now, Trump hands down. I mean, letting all these people cross the border.
With Northampton County on a red-hot streak as the nation's political bellwether, the Trump and Harris campaigns will keep hammering away here until Election Day. Steve Herman, VOA News, Northampton County, Pennsylvania.
Early voting for the presidential election in the southern state of Georgia began on October 15th, and polls show a close contest there between Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump, which is why both campaigns are trying to reach as many voters as possible.
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp and Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance shared the stage at a recent dinner, a show of Republican Party unity, after years of discord between Kemp and former President Donald Trump.
We're finna start all over.
Atlanta voter Dorothy Harp is not concerned about Trump's feud with Kemp over the 2020 election, which Trump falsely says he won in Georgia. She's more concerned about the economy.
We had lower prices on our food, gas, energy costs. Everything was better under the Trump administration.
It's a message Harp takes door to door, encouraging members of her community to vote.
And I've got a lot of young voters who said they're going to vote for Trump.
In the 2020 election, Joe Biden defeated Trump in Georgia by just over 11,000 votes out of nearly 5 million cast. Numbers Georgia's Republican Governor Kemp knows well, as he implored audience members, including Harp, to vote.
So we cannot take anything for granted. We cannot take our foot off the gas.
Georgia is fully in play again.
Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, a Democrat, says polls show another close race this year between Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris.
People sometimes get disenfranchised by thinking that their vote doesn't matter, but we have to go out there and make sure everyone knows that their vote does matter.
Listen, every vote counts.
Elijah Grace is with the voter advocacy organization, the New Georgia Project Action Fund, whose workers go door to door to promote voter registration.
We specialize in targeting black and brown people across the state, making sure that they have all the resources that's needed to cast their ballot.
A 2020 Pew Research Center study showed Georgia's eligible black voting population made up a third of the state's total electorate. Exit polls in 2020 showed 88% of black voters chose Biden, but recent polls show Democrats losing ground in this close contest.
Both sides understand that roads lead through Georgia.
When the race was between Biden and Trump, Grace noticed a lack of enthusiasm among potential voters.
And since the Democratic ticket has changed, we have seen a strong uptick in support for Vice President Kamala Harris.
She's at the intersection of color and gender.
Bernice King, daughter of civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., believes Harris appeals to voters previously considering sitting on the sidelines.
Frankly, just speaking as a woman, I think this is a season where we're seeing more and more women emerge in the critical places of leadership.
Leadership is motivating Harp to back Trump, and she's working to bring others along with her as Republicans focus on inflation and cost of living concerns.
I have already committed to taking some of the people I know to the poll. I said, if you ain't got a way to get there, I'll get you there.
Both parties view the Midwestern state of Michigan as crucial to winning the White House in November, and each campaign is organizing get-out-the-vote drives to ensure their supporters turn out. VOA White House Bureau Chief Patsy Witakiswara has more from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
At the Gem and Bean, owner Doug Lee is serving up more than ice cream.
And hey man, thank you for your service.
He is also handing out Donald Trump yard signs here in suburban Grand Rapids.
And those signs come to us for free. What they want in lieu of free is they want us to sign up for Trump.
He says volunteering for the Trump campaign is motivated by patriotism.
I love this country, and many people do. There's an effort to divide this country. We are in a civil war.
15 kilometers away at the Kent County Democrats headquarters, a training for volunteers to make phone calls.
Hi, my name is John Mitchell. I'm with the Democratic Party in Kent County.
To get people out to vote on Election Day.
2016 was very close. 2020 was very close. And to me, anyway, there's no indication that 2024 is going to be any different.
Volunteers are key to winning in Michigan. Democrats say they are confident.
The number of folks who've been active and will continue to be active in our campaign is one of the largest I've seen since I've been at the party.
Republicans also express confidence.
We are hitting tens of thousands of doors per week. It's a phenomenal ground game. It's something that I haven't seen in the state at this scale ever.
Michigan is a battleground state that could swing for either Vice President Kamala Harris or former President Donald Trump.
Every voting block is key in a tight election. There are certain voting blocks that we assume that one party is going to do well with, but you need to definitely to sort of have make sure that you get their votes. So, for instance, Democrats need to make sure that they get a large portion of the African American vote in the state. Republicans need to make sure they get a large portion of the evangelical vote in the state.
With 15 electoral votes to contribute to the minimum 270 to win, it's no wonder that Michigan is heavily courted by both candidates, who are virtually tied in the polls. Harris visited Michigan 4 times since becoming the Democratic nominee in July. Trump has been in the state 9 times this election cycle, 5 times in the last month alone. In a town hall in Flint last week, he focused on cheap electric vehicle imports from China, a concern to many Michigan auto workers.
If I don't win, you will have no auto industry within 2 to 3 years. It'll all be gone. And I know you got a little bit of an increase. It doesn't mean that's the small stuff, because it's just a temporary thing, because you will not have any manufacturing plants.
The United Automobile Workers Labor Union is a key political force in the state and has endorsed Harris. But she faces headwinds from Arab Americans angry over the war in Gaza. Michigan has the nation's largest percentage of Arab Americans. In Detroit, Harris did not address Gaza. She highlighted Republican efforts to restrict abortion, which has been a winning issue for Democrats.
Certain people who are in these state houses, and then starting with the former President of the United States, think they're in a better position than a doctor or a nurse to determine when their patient needs medical care.
For both campaigns, winning Michigan means turning out regular supporters and winning over the small number of voters who say they are still undecided. Patsy Witakiswara and Rifan Duyastono, VOA News, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
There are 7 swing states that could determine the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. While some have shifted politically over the years, the western state of Nevada does not lean strongly toward one party or the other. VOA's Dora McQuarr has more from Las Vegas.
Nevada, home to 3.1 million people, is probably best known for Las Vegas, its most famous city, also known as Sin City. Nevada reliably voted Republican from the late 1960s until the early 2000s. Since then, the state regularly swings between the 2 political parties. Nevada's population has more than tripled since 1980. Many recent newcomers are from predominantly liberal California.
What's happened is the Clark County, which is the county where Las Vegas sits, is now 72% of the voting population in this state. So what has happened to Nevada is what was once a rural Mountain West state has become an urban West Coast state.
There's Vegas, and then there's the rest of Nevada. And from my knowledge, Vegas tends to be more on the Democrat side, whereas the rest of Nevada is more Republican. But then again, most of the population is in Vegas.
Despite the population explosion, Nevada remains heavily working class, with many residents working manual jobs.
So things like wages, things like unemployment, things like housing affordability, just inflation in general, so things like fuel prices, all of those things affect people a little bit more here in Nevada than they might in some other states.
College students at the University of Nevada at Las Vegas outline their top issues. Some will vote for the first time now that they've reached the voting age of 18.
Definitely abortion, definitely the economy. What else? Education as well.
The state of economy, probably just the border.
I'm kind of broke college kid. I would just like to be able to better afford food. I would like to be able to have a single job that pays enough to help me with all of my needs.
When they vote in November's general election, Nevadans will also vote on whether to install a right to abortion in the state constitution.
The issue overall has already proven to be a big driver, a big motivator of turnout in prior elections, and I think this one will be no different.
Still, Miller says no one should underestimate former President Donald Trump's chances of winning Nevada.
I think that Trump is being perceived as a candidate unlikely to win Nevada simply because he hasn't won the last 2 times. I wouldn't discount the importance of economic issues as driving the decision for voters in this state.
Good evening, Nevada! Nevada's critical role as a battleground state is why both presidential nominees, Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, are spending time here. Because ultimately, what happens in Vegas could determine who will lead America for the next 4 years.
You're fired. Get out of here. You're fired.
Dora McQuarr, VOA News, Las Vegas.
One county here in Wisconsin plays an outsized role in determining whether Democrats or Republicans win the White House. VOA's Veronica Balderas-Iglesias takes us to Dane County, which is not just growing in size, but also in political influence.
Winning the swing state of Wisconsin could tip the Democratic or Republican presidential nominee into the White House. In both 2016 and 2020, the state was won by fewer than 1 percentage point of the vote. While most counties in Wisconsin lean conservative, Dane, the state's second largest county and home of the University of Wisconsin, is a liberal stronghold. Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris is expected to win here, but it's the number of votes she garners that matters.
If she can overperform in Dane County with voter turnout, the margin of victory is going to be so large that it might be enough to carry her over the finish line.
The conservative presence in this fast-growing county can also be mined by former President Donald Trump's campaign, Wagner says.
This state's going to come down to 20 to 40,000 votes. If he can encourage 1 or 2 or 3,000 more people to vote here, that might be enough to offset some losses he's having in the suburbs.
Aiming for high turnout in November, both the Democratic and Republican parties tailor their messaging to appeal to their supporters here in Dane County. The county's Democratic Party bets on the premise that voters don't want to go, quote, backwards.
The preservation of democracy is a really important issue, and access to reproductive health care.
The Republican messaging focuses on the economy.
The choice is between Donald Trump, who was a proven economic success as president, and Kamala Harris, who is, with Joe Biden, a proven failure.
Democrats dispute that assessment. Meanwhile, most Dane County voters have likely made up their minds on who they'll vote for, researchers say. Statewide, only 4% of voters remain truly undecided. With the race so tight, parties will continue courting undecided voters in Dane County and beyond, in the hopes that their votes make a difference in the state's race and possibly the presidential one. Veronica Balderas-Iglesias, VOA News, Dane County, Wisconsin.
Thanks for joining us on The Inside Story. You can connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at VOA News. You can also visit our website at any time at voanews.com. Also, be sure to check out our free streaming service, VOA Plus. I'm Kane Farabaugh, and we'll see you next week on The Inside Story.